Hi, I'm Christy Oki, and I teach piano and cello and accordion online from Ullapool in the Highlands of Scotland. And this is how I do it because a lot of people have asked that. And I have to say that I have a lot of students, and so far I've only lost two of them as a result of having gone online and not being able to do lessons in person anymore due to lockdown from the virus. So that's pretty good. And some of them have taken breaks and come back because they're also doing online school. So I think having one more thing to do is hard for them. Now, what I've been doing is starting virtual practice sessions. So I log into a Zoom meeting, and I have one for under 18s, and I'll be starting one for adults, where where everyone is supposed to come into the Zoom meeting and then they mute themselves, and I sit down and mute myself, and then we all practice, and I can see them, and they know that I can see them, and they can see me, but we can't hear each other, and they only have to come in like 10 minutes. And then I know that they've been there, and it means that their parents have one less thing that they have to do. And my hope is that that virtual practice can continue after we get out of lockdown because it means parents don't have to supervise their kids. And it might seem to some people that I'm losing money by doing that for free, but actually, it helps me retain students if they're practicing and it's not stressful for their parents. So I have some pretty good hope for that. Uh, so 8 to 8:20 in the morning is not an ideal time, but my hope is that once we get back into school, like they should be able to handle that. They can do it before they catch the bus. Some of them, um, except for the ones who live really far north. So I'm going to probably have to create some other ones, and I might create one for grown-ups as well, even for teachers, and then having the choice at the very end to unmute maybe once a week and have people play what they've been working on. But for the little guys and for teenagers, you just come in, do your stuff, and go. And I know that this works because of sites like FocusMate, where you are paired up with somebody from somewhere around the world, and then you do your work, and you say at the beginning, you check in and you say what you're going to do, and then you mute and you sort of minimize them over in the corner, and then you both say at the end what you did, and you don't have a conversation, and but it's been amazing, and you get so much more work done. And so I'm thinking that practice is going to really be helped with that. Okay, so people want to know how I teach online, and how I motivate my students and all that. So the first thing I have on my list is to talk about is webcams. So I have one camera that you're seeing now that's on my computer, and I teach. I have a very, very old Mac that I use for teaching. And so I also have up above me, I have a Logitech camera. And this camera, I've got it just mounted into the ceiling. I'll just put this up and show you it. I don't know if you can see that. There it is. Okay, so I have it so to me, it looks backwards, the name of the Logitech thing. And that's because if it's backwards, then students can see they can see my hands directly. And I had to actually test this a few times, and I had to really adjust it. But what it does is, in a Zoom call, which is how I do my lessons, it will let me switch cameras, and then they can see my hands. And there's another site, and then I can switch back. But on YouTube Live, I used to teach on YouTube Live, but it's so hard to switch cameras that I didn't want to do that. Now, at some point, what I'll do is I'll get a camera switching app, and then that will allow me to switch between cameras and maybe put 2 or 3 cameras, like so that they can see my face, and they can see my hands, and they can also see my virtual camera. So I have, because I'm teaching on an electronic piano, I have this hooked up with MIDI to a virtual keyboard that I got on Classroom Maestro, which has been great. So what it does is it shows, it'll show like so I can put that, and I can put my my camera of my hands. So then they'll see like the top of my head, and they'll see if I've left a book on the floor, they can see that too. They can see the dog. So I have to just make sure that I have not done a bunch of lessons and then left stuff around. Um, so then what it does is it lights the keys up that I'm playing, plus I have the option to put a music staff above that. So as I'm playing, it'll show the note on the music staff above. And if I play chords, I can have an option to set it to chords, or I can set it to scales or whatever. And then it'll show, it'll analyze them. It'll do jazz analysis for me. Or if I want to show them the relationship between keys, like I want to show them like a 1 chord being C and a 4 chord being F or whatever, it'll actually do that analysis too. It'll do like 1, 4, 5, 7, and it has a really good tutorial at the beginning when you get onto that. So that's Classroom Maestro. I've put all these down in the links or in the things below for people. Okay, so how do I schedule online lessons? And this has been actually quite wonderful. I use an app, or I use a thing called My Music Staff. Now, My Music Staff, they will do everything pretty much for you. So you go in there and you pay not very much a month, but it lets you schedule your lessons, and then you can get a link that will go to your regular calendar, your online calendar, like your calendar that you can link to your phone and everything else that you have. So I use Outlook, but you can also use Google. And so then let's say that you've got a lesson scheduled or whatever, then you can it takes a little while to update it, but you can go to your phone. Let's say you're out and you're like, oh, do I have a lesson? When are my lessons? And you can just check, and it'll let you see on your Outlook. It'll send the information about which lessons you have, and then you know that, and you have it down, and you've invited your students, and you link. For me, I link in the description of the lesson on the calendar. I put a link that says, click here, what is your scheduled lesson time? And then it takes them into the meeting that I have scheduled for them on Zoom. And then they're able to go in there, and I just get on and I switch between meetings. Now, I learned a lot of this from my accordion teacher. I have a degree in cello, and my secondary instrument is piano. So I felt like I needed some more help with accordion before I could teach online. And so I've been studying online with my teacher for a year and a half. And he's a Serbian guy, and he lives in Florida. And I've actually never met him, but he has brought me up pretty much professional, getting close to professional level now. And I play classical accordion with him. And so he's gotten me to a place where I'm going to be able to go into competition this year, which is really exciting. Now he's got My Music Staff, Classroom Maestro hooked up so that he has an accordion app on there, so that when he had them design it for him on accordion, so he can show his buttons lighting up. He can show you, his picture of his hands, but even he uses the up above webcam on the piano. And then if you get an app that lets you switch cameras, it'll also let you zoom. So and I don't have that one yet, but it'll mean that you can just show like an octave of your hands. But right now, the way my students see it, I have the whole camera out. And eventually what I'm going to do is start doing online concerts, because I've discovered that my overall happiness goes way up when I'm performing. And so I have the choice now where I can do it using my webcam. But the problem is, one of them is that I need a better microphone. But the second one is that they can't see my face. They can't see what I consider to be a huge part of the performance, which is how I look when I'm playing. And so because I'm single and I live here by myself, there's a way that I feel invisible if no one is seeing me perform. So what I'm going to do is get that thing that allows them to see 2 cameras at once. My accordion teacher uses something called ManyCam, but you can't get that anymore. I went in and tried it, but there are other things like OBS that will allow you, that are free. And so that's the next thing for me, is to get that set up so that I can start doing online concerts. But so far I've been able to teach without needing to show more than 1 camera at once, because I screen share in my Zoom calls, and I can just jump between my virtual keyboard. And when I do the virtual keyboard, it takes the Zoom and it puts like my face, or I can switch the face over to my webcam. So then they can actually see my webcam and they can see my virtual keyboard, but they're not seeing them smack on top of each other the way that they will when I get the app that lets me do several cameras at once. Okay. So my music staff, when I went in there and did that, you can either create your music website through that, or you can go create a music website through something like Wix, and then you can go to my music staff, and they will give you a widget, and you can just, it's really easy, and they tell you exactly how to do it, and you put that in your website, and I've linked my website down there, and you can see it. It says new student registration or something, and then the students go in there and they put the information in, and then I get a notification that says, somebody has signed up for lessons or something. And so then I contact them. I don't give them my phone number because I can't take a phone call during a lesson. And because for some strange reason, even though I'm so good or I'm getting better at technology, my phone keeps going into silent mode, and I can't figure out how to make it stop. Every day I go to Google Assistant and I say, please, can you take my phone out of silent mode, and then it does it. But it just does it by itself. I think it might be when it's like in my pocket or something, because I always go with my phone, because then I can see who I'm teaching when. And I can also see all the other things on my Outlook calendar, because my music staff feeds it into there. And it can also feed the lesson. It gives students a chance or the option to send a lesson notification like to their Google or Outlook account. And I think it does one more option, but I can't remember what the other calendar system is that it lets them send to. So that's been great. Okay, so then the next thing is, how do I motivate my students online if I'm not seeing them? Which is tricky has been tricky, because generally before this I've been using stickers. Okay, so I'm actually still using stickers. The stickers, like the levels of motivation, here's what they are. I use stickers first, but because I'm teaching online, I can't just give the kid a sticker and they can't just stick it in their book. So what I do instead is I hold the sticker up, like I hold it up during their lesson. And then let's say they do something really well, and I tend to give lots of stickers because I feel so bad that they're not able to see me, and it's nice to go see your piano teacher, especially when your mom gets to go with you, or your dad. And I have in the place where I lived before, I had like a special couch where the students or the parents sat. And now what I have set up is I have set them up a rocking chair. And I just feel like, sometimes it's the one chance the parents have to sit down, and I like having them there. And then I sit on the other side over here. I have a little, like when I'm teaching in person, which isn't right now, except for the kids in my bubble family, because we're not allowed to do that. So I can stick my chair here. And then I've discovered that the lesson notes, I have such horrible handwriting and I go so fast that I still do lesson notes on the computer. So I still, for my kids in my bubble family, I still open their Zoom lesson. And then, I open their, my music staff, like I click on their lesson and it pulls them up and it lets me check their attendance. And it says, if it lets me put down if someone was late, if something happens and I have to be absent, then I can put down absent, no charge. It allows me to set my price on there. So like, let's say that there's a student I'm trading with or something, instead of them paying me. So I just put down 0 for that. And then that works fine. It doesn't charge them, but it still allows me to get an account for them. And then they can go into there and they can click on their lesson, or they can click on their name, and it shows them everything. It shows them how many lessons they've attended, like what is their attendance record. It lets them put notes down about their practice. My music staff also gives them a way to keep track of their practice, so they can start like a little timer, and it tells me that. So sometimes I'll get into a lesson, especially with adult students, and it'll say, this student has practiced this many hours since you saw them before, and then they'll have listed on there. Here's where I had trouble. like a cello student, I can't get my bow hand, I can't get this. So then I'll know right away if I take my little bit of time before and I go check their notes, I'll know right away, okay, this student's needing help with this. So then I can come right on and I can just say, hey, I noticed that you were having trouble with your bow hand. Can I help you? And the other thing is that they know that they can come to me in between lessons for extra help. And I just put that, if I'm going to do extra help with them, I put it down when I schedule it in my thing, because I have to schedule everything. Like they'll just message me on Facebook Messenger or something. I'm confused about something. Sometimes they'll send me a little video that says, is this right? And then I'll just write back and I'll say yes, or I'll make them a little video that says, no, this is happening, or try, or put yourself in G position, you're in C position, or whatever it is. Okay, so when they have questions then, and they need extra help, like yesterday I had a student who didn't understand, some of the ones that come in and they think they're beginners, but they actually have had lessons before. So they know a whole bunch about these different things, but they don't have connections. So then some of them need help. Like, why does the 5-finger exercise that I'm doing change? Why do I have sometimes these black notes and other times I don't have any? So then yesterday I had to explain about half and whole steps. And so I was able to do that. I scheduled like 15-minute thing that I just put down. It says extra help. So it looks in my schedule, it's a different color than a regular lesson, and it doesn't recur. I can also say that for it. And the other thing is, when I put in Zoom, I used to schedule their lessons like, I would say, okay, we're going to schedule 8 lessons, and I would put them in. But what I've discovered now is that I just put in recurring meet anytime. So when I do a Zoom lesson, I just, I go into Zoom, and then I can scroll down and I can see where it says, this person piano lessons, this person cello. And that's important because sometimes my students have the same name and they're studying. There's like maybe 2 students that have the same name, but one is a cellist or one is an accordion player and one's a pianist or something. Okay, so I need to make sure I know that. Or like, let's say that I have 2 students in a family, and every time, like what'll happen, the reason I need different accounts for them on Zoom, different meetings, is because let's say that I make a video for them during the lesson. So that's easy because Zoom lets me do that. It just lets me record either to the cloud or to my computer. And then I go ahead and I say, I'm going to demonstrate this for you. So then I demonstrate, and the student turns off their camera, because otherwise what Zoom will do is it'll switch, because it'll think it's a meeting. It'll switch back and forth between the different cameras, and the student won't be able to see everything. So they all know, even the littlest ones, how to switch their camera off. So they switch their camera, and then I just show whatever it is, and then they switch it back on. And that works really well. And then at the end of the lesson, when I'm doing their lesson notes or finishing their lesson notes, which are also on my music staff, then I go over to Zoom and I click on Get Recordings. And if it's just finished and it was kind of a long recording, which I try not to do that because it stresses them out to have to go and look at recordings. So I mean, this is the feedback I've gotten. I try not to make them recordings if I can help it, but sometimes they need it because they need to hear something like dynamics. They need to hear that they need to end something staccato that started legato or whatever it is. They need that, and they're not going to get it unless they have it in a recording. So then I apologize and I just say, I'm really sorry, but I made this recording, and if you could just play it for your kid, and sometimes I'll even like send a link to the recording to the parent in Facebook Messenger. Plus then if they go on the website, they can see it, and all those kinds of things. So that's great. I feel like I lost what I was saying. Sorry. I've got a list of things here that I was going to talk about. Okay, so when they're all finished with their lesson, they have typed notes. Oh, so I know what I was saying. If I have my 2 students that are in my bubble family that I can teach in person, I still take lessons online. And if they've done a really good job, I let them make a video of themselves. And I suspect that this is going to be a motivator for them to continue because, like as we go forward out of lockdown, because every student likes the idea of making a music video, especially if I can switch and I can show them, like, I can just click on it during, if I'm recording it for them. and they can see that suddenly, like they can see the top of their head and they can see themselves doing this, and they love that. They love to look up at the camera and stuff. And they love being able to make a video. So it's a big motivator for my students in my bubble family. And then what happens is the parents have a link to that recording, and then they can send that to grandparents. And then it makes the whole family seem much more connected to each other, which is wonderful. Now, I do have one student where the parents and the grandmother who's paying for lessons are separated from each other because of lockdown, because they are not in they're not in bubbles. So here's what they've done. They're practicing. Grandmother's a pianist, and she got these lessons for her granddaughter. So she practices remotely. She supervises her granddaughter's practice through a Zoom meeting all week. And then at the lesson, I have all three of us on the same Zoom call. So I've listed the parents in my music staff. I've listed both the parent and the grandmother as contacts. And so they both get lesson notes, and they both have the Zoom link. And when they go into the my music staff calendar, then they can just, it says, click on the link at your lesson time. And then they just click on it. And then they both come in, and they've got a lesson at a certain time. And then I can spotlight the student. So then she's right there. And then we are tiny, me and the grandmother, and the mom's there working with the student to help make sure that everything's right. And usually the students put the camera on the side. It's more important for me to be able to see their face than it is to see their hands. I need to see their hands a little in the beginning, and sometimes I'll ask them to tip the camera down. But if I can see their face, then I'm teaching the student, and I can generally always hear what the student is doing. I don't need to see what it is. Like I can tell, like, oh, you didn't start that, start a note down or whatever. And that has to do with the fact that my mom, who's a piano teacher, did a lot of ear training with us. So I do a lot of ear training with my students too. I have them listen. Like I do a lot of games with ear training, and that's been great. I do a lot of theory so that they understand the relationships between different notes. And that's really important because, especially here in Scotland, there's a possibility of them becoming ceilidh pianists. And so if they understand all the keys and the relationships between the keys, then they're going to be able to play ceilidh piano pretty soon, which is great. Okay, so how do I motivate my students when we're online? So there are, I think I was saying there are levels of motivation. I do the stickers, I cut them out. If I have a whole lot, I'll show you what my system was before with stickers. So in the beginning, what I was doing is I was sort of making piles of stickers. Okay, but then the problem was that I got confused about whose stickers were whose. Like, let's say I taught a whole bunch of lessons and I didn't have breaks because that's what I was doing wrong in the beginning. And then maybe like my kids were here, and then suddenly like I've got piles of stickers, and my kids are excited because they know they're not supposed to touch the stickers, but they want to look at them. And now the stickers are getting mixed up, and I'm trying to do dinner and it's too much. Okay, so I started by getting egg things, and I put stickers in here. And I thought I was golden until the egg thing tipped over and all the stickers got mixed together. And my students who had chosen the stickers, and I was like, oh, and I didn't know who had gotten what. So now I do it a little bit differently. I'm only going to have usually 6 lessons a day if they're little kids, like in a row. So with breaks in between. So I took a little teeny egg thing and I just labeled them. And so here you can see that these are my lessons, my little kid lessons from yesterday, because my grown-ups don't get stickers. And I just stick them in here. And then after I'm done with this, then I put them into a notebook. And the notebook has, it's got, so here's my notebook. And if I have a student in actual sheet music that I haven't, that's got so many pages that I can't just put it as an online resource and then pull it up next to the lesson, I put the pages in here. But I also have these things, and there you can see in the bottom, I dump the stickers in here. And then if I'm doing really, really well with this, I have an envelope, and then the student's name is here. And then every so often, like every month and a half or so, I put all my envelopes in a row in a shoebox in alphabetical order because they're already organized. And then I have, where I lived before, I had a separate entryway so a parent could open the door of my house, take an envelope with their kid's name and go. But now I'm not in a place with a separate entryway. So what I've been doing is mailing my stickers or pencils or whatever it is that I have. So to them, to the students. And that helps also because some students, they don't come down to Ullapool or anything like that. So what I should probably do is find some place to leave the stickers for them that's like a public place. I haven't done that yet. So I've just been mailing them. So then the next thing that I do is I motivate them with, I have them do different sorts of things to get pencils. And I used to do one teeny weeny sticker for every day they practiced, but it was too much. And it always felt like a kind of guilt thing where I would say, and how many days did you practice? And then like, if the parent was there, they would look bad and the students would be upset. And I just thought, well, this is stupid. I'm not going to make them feel bad. Okay. So, and the virtual practice sessions help too. So I have, if the student can go around the circle of fifths, like these are all their keys. If they can go around the circle of fifths doing 5-finger exercises, and that's just this. Whoops, I gotta turn my piano on. My piano is connected using a MIDI cable to my computer, and then that allows my virtual keyboard to happen. And the virtual keyboard from Classroom Maestro also has a pedal thing so that as I'm pressing my pedal, the student can see that the pedal color changes. So then they can see exactly what I'm doing with everything. So I can do that. I can screen share with them and I can show them that too. All right, so here's 5-finger exercises. They're just the first 5 notes of the scale. So I send the student an online resource that has tiny little keyboards like on it, and then it goes around the circle of fifths and it shows them it shows them like little dots for what they're supposed to play. So we start working on that right away. When they can do all of these, like a circle of fifth a 5-finger exercise in every key, then they get this pencil and it says circle of fifths. And I have a whole bunch of these, but most of the time people wanted like aqua. So I got a whole bunch of aqua ones because that seems to be the color everybody likes. And I just ordered them online and they made them for me and they're amazing. And then they also get their name on here saying the date that they got their pencil. So my last student got one in January of this year, and my first students of getting these pencils were like a couple of years ago, maybe. Okay. If I have students who are siblings and I don't want them competing with each other, and there's one who's motivated really a lot and the other one isn't, and I know that one is going to beat the other out, I won't let them compete for the same pencil. So if that happens, then I put them into hand and exercise. I have a set of, here it is, hand and exercise pencils. And so if they can do 10 hand and exercises, and you can find these online, they're the ones that go like this. And they don't even have to know much more than go up a third or down a second or something like that to be able to figure these out. Hand and exercises are all online now. And so you can just send a student to a website and then you can say, do number 1, and you go over it with them and then they can get it. Okay, the other thing that I do for motivating my students, I used to do getting them ready for recitals, and then we got locked down. And it took me a while to sort of recover from that. What I probably should have done is I should have put them into a virtual recital, but I wasn't hooked up at that point, and I didn't have everybody on Zoom meetings. But what I will do at some point here is we'll do a virtual recital, and everyone will be in a gallery, and then everyone who's not playing will mute themselves, and then everyone will listen. It's not going to be, I know they have Zoom meetings all the time, but sometimes you just have to because it's a motivator for them. But the other thing that I did was I had a couple students, so in Scotland and some in the States a little bit, there's this thing called ABRSM, it stands for the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music. So I'm on there as a teacher, and when I have a student who's ready for an exam, then I register them. And so they have to be able to play. There are 3 pieces that ABRSM has them choose from for each grade, like a list A, list B, list C, and generally from different sort of time periods. Okay. So then how it used to be is that they would do those 3 pieces, and then it would have a list of scales, and they would have, if they were up to grade 5, they'd have to do theory also, like what's called a grade 5 theory exam. And it still is. But now that we can't have an examiner come out, or they can't go to a bigger town to do it. Like if I had a whole bunch of students doing exams, maybe we could get an examiner to come out here. But generally, I think people go into big towns. When I taught at Gordonston, we had enough students that we could get an examiner to do everybody from all of our lessons. But here, I don't think we're going to get enough. And I'm the only piano teacher in town because the other ones are retiring or have retired. So I'm not going to be able to get enough students doing exams to have that. So they're going to have to, when we're done being locked down, they're going to have to go into a big town, Inverness or something like that. Not that that's that big, but there you go. Probably there's enough students in Inverness that they'll have an examiner come up for that. But what they've done, ABRSM has started going with remote exams. And so I can register them, and then the student makes a recording. Once I register them, then the student has an account, and they can go into that account. And I just need their birthday and some other stuff, and then I can register them. And I pay for the exam, and the student pays me back. And then the student goes in there, and then they can submit their recording. And it's my responsibility to make sure that they can do that. So I have them show me sort of examples leading up to the exam. And but then once they record the exam, I can't ever see it. The only person who can see it is ABRSM. They send it in. I have them record a bunch of them, and then they choose the one that is right, that they like the best, and they send it in. And then I get their exam certificates sent to me, and then I'll send them on to the students, and we'll sort of debrief from the exam based on how that works, just like a regular ABRSM exam. So I've found that doing ABRSM remote exams has actually motivated my students so much. And I missed this in the beginning. Like I had a couple students ready for ABRSM exams when we locked down last year. And so then it was a while before they got the remote exams up, which is kind of a shame, because what happened is that the students got so tired of having to keep the same pieces up that finally we just skipped over it and we went on to the next grade, because it's really hard for them to do that. So now what I did eventually was I said, look, just make a recording of your pieces from this grade. And because it's not an ABRSM actual exam, that means that you can take that recording and you can show it to whoever you want. Like you can send it to grandparents, you can whatever. And so then that's what they did. A couple of them, they just sort of skipped over that. And I sent the one of the recordings with permission. I sent it to my mom, who's also a music teacher. And she sent me back what she thought. Now, my mom is a theory judge for theory exams in the States. And they go all, I mean, she's a theory teacher, and she does a lot of work with Michiko Yurko's Music Mind Games, and she has theory classes like every Saturday, or she used to, with all her students. So she was able to give some feedback in the place of an ABRSM exam when ABRSM was still getting their stuff together. But now I can do remote exams, and my students do, and they seem to be doing really well with that. And they're zooming ahead, like just amazingly with that. Okay, so those are the pencils. Now, if the other thing I do is that once my students know their circle of fifths, then I have them use a 7th chord to get back around the circle of fifths. So when they start doing 5-finger exercises, they go this way. So they're always adding, So they're always adding sharps and stuff. Okay, then when they do 7th chords, a C7 chord goes here, an F7 chord goes here. And so then once they learn their scales, they do a cadence, which is all their major chords of their scale, and that go in that key. So, and I always explain this like this is sort of their gang of friends. Okay, so they start doing scales and cadences. And then they do a 7th chord, and then they go to the next one in the circle of fifths. I'm sorry, F. So once they can get all the way around the circle of fifths with scales and cadences, which is important because once they can do these cadences, they can play Käle piano. which is great because that puts them right into the Scottish kind of music culture, and I love it. And it means that they're ready for anything, like if they have brothers or sisters playing pipes or whatever, they're studying with some Fèis people, they can accompany. And I think that the Fèis also has something for piano, but I'm not sure about that. I would have to check. When they get all the way through their scales and cadences, and I always put this back here so they can see this. This is my biggest motivation pencil. Nobody's gotten it yet because all my students that are able or could be able to play all their scales and cadences are working on ABRSM exams. And so they don't want to spend all this time learning other scales that don't help them on their exams. So this is what they get. And then I have said to them that if they get, if they manage to do that, and no one's done it yet, that I will put their name in the local paper and congratulate them and say, I'm going to congratulate the student who went and did all their scales and cadences, which is harder than any of the ABRSM scale requirements where they only require, well, I guess they require minor too. And I do explain that to my students, and they know that because I make them transpose right from the beginning. And they start that right away with the with the 5-finger exercises. Okay, so my music staff lets me schedule everything, and they keep track of money for me. So when tax time comes, I can just I can see exactly how many lessons I had, because every time I have a lesson, I have to mark down if the student was there or not, and I have to mark down if they get a credit or if they were absent, or let's say I was absent. Whatever it is that's wrong, I can mark down if they're late, and then it gives them this score. And they can say, like if they log on to the website, then it will say, you have attended 96% of your lessons and you've been late this many times or whatever. And then the student can also put down in there, they can write notes to me. They can keep track of their practice time. They can write notes down, like I need to work on my bow hand or whatever it is. Okay, so how do I teach accordion and cello? I don't always feel comfortable teaching cello. I do it because my students don't have anybody else that I had live here if they've moved away, or I can't see them in person. I'm still doing it, but the problem is that the cello has got such a big sound that it creates like a bubble, and I get distortion, and I can hear and I can see kind of, but tough. I mean, I have a wired Ethernet connection, and if I can get my students to do a wired Ethernet connection, and then they have to change one of their sound settings on Zoom, then it's a little easier. It says on Zoom if you can use original sound or not use original sound, and I put down don't use original sound, and then that does reduce interference, but it's still tough. I can at some point run all of these things through. I have like a mixer. But I'm going to need to wait till we're done with lockdown, and then I'm going to have to get a sound person in here because I had everything hooked up and it was kind of buzzing. And I'm not a tech person, so I don't know how to do this. I'm getting all this help from my accordion teacher who lives in the States. But that buzz, I couldn't figure it out. And then I moved, so I didn't even try. So teaching cello is okay. I can see that stuff. I can also demonstrate stuff. I can make videos. And what I noticed about cello is I put tapes on my cello and when I demonstrate. And that means that a student can see what position I'm in. Like if I'm here and I just back myself way up, and then I can still teach right here, and I show them where I am, and then they can see the shifting. So I have to teach with tapes on the cello. Accordion. So when I'm doing accordion, if I want to demonstrate something, I don't have a virtual accordion, but I do show them, I can show them this, and I can show them the virtual camera. I mean, I can show them the webcam so they can see like what it would look like on here. And then to show them this one, I just do this, and they have diagrams, and I say, can you see this? Can you see this? Now go here, and then I show them that. And then that works pretty well. And then the other thing that I do is I have gone into a method that my mother doesn't use because it came out in 2015, and it has an app that goes along with it. So then the students can listen, and I don't have to, if I don't feel like making a recording for a student, or I don't need to, then if the student's really stuck, they can go and they can listen. And I think that it even has some sort of play along feature. And that is coming out of Lang Lang's books. So he has a bunch of what I list when I give them a new piece. I can list what it is, and then I can list when it's complete. So I put these down as prep books. So there are like 5 or 6 of these books, and then after you get out of these, and they're basically taking you up to level 1, and they're fine except for they have sort of a Chinese kind of sound, which I don't think is necessarily bad, because I think it's fine to expand kids' feeling about what sounds right. And because I'm a Kodai teacher, or a color strings teacher, so we use a lot of Eastern European music, and it's really expands their feeling. Like a lot of them really love it, like a lot more minor stuff than you would normally hear. So I'm not averse to that, but some students, they have trouble with that. So I do use different methods for different students. If I have a grown-up, or if I'm teaching a lot of theory, I'll do this one. Like if this student came to me and they said, I just want to write music, or I wanted this or whatever, then this is a method that I use that my mom also uses. And it's basically chords and melody, so that they can start to see how to, and I make them do a lot of transposition. But then so once they know cadences, then this is so easy for them, and they can get through this book, and then they know what they're doing. The only problem is it's written for Americans. So if I'm teaching a Scottish person, they're not going to know, for example, like the caissons go rolling along. They're not going to know My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. Weirdly enough, they don't know that one, which is the way that I teach how to do a 6th, like My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. They don't know this, so I can't use that. I have to send them a link, weirdly enough, with someone singing in a Scottish accent. Then after you get out of those prep books, those Lang Lang prep books. So some of the kids that can't handle like the sort of Chinese sounding things in this, once they get into book 2, they're a little bit better. Book 3 is a lot better, and it's got really cool things like ideas like theme and variations. It's got like it'll take a kid through little teeny mini sonatinas, which are easy, where they can use all their building blocks like scales, cadence, like cadence chords and stuff. Then after they get done with that, then they go into these Lang Lang books. So then these ones are great. They seem not to have an app for accompanying that I have found, but maybe I'm just missing it. So then here you can see about the level that they are. So these I would say are grade 1, but there aren't any grade 1 piano ABRSM tunes that are in these books. So they still have to go get the ABRSM books or whatever, but they can generally handle them pretty well if they're into the Lang Lang. And then Lang Lang seems to be just a little bit higher than ABRSM. So if I have a student in grade 1, this one here, they're going to do fine on a grade 1 piano exam, I think. But and actually now I have some students in higher grades, and I would say, I don't know. I mean, we just pretty much, when they're working on an exam, some of them just want to work on the exam. They don't want to get through a method book anymore, which is a little bit tricky, but we do the best we can. At least they're motivated to practice. So I think that's about it. If you have any questions, I've talked about scheduling. In the beginning, when I was doing lessons, I wasn't scheduling breaks. I was just jamming the students in. And what happened was I didn't have enough time to go to the bathroom or get a new glass of water, which I need if I'm going to be talking. And I didn't get a chance to restoke my fire, which meant that I would be sitting here, and that's where my heat comes from, because I generally leave this off because it's so close to the fire and I don't want to lose the electricity. I have a little teeny heater that I use here. And if I'm really cold, because there's a piano here, like an electronic piano between me and the fire, I'll just stick this, I'll turn it on, I'll stick it right under my legs, and then it keeps me warm, and I put this little blanket over my lap. And the only time the students ever see that is if I have the webcam on, and they can also see that my legs are crossed. But you know what? It's okay. I'm teaching, and they're learning. And so I just say, don't cross your legs when you play piano. So it's fine. I think that's probably about it. If you have any questions, give me a shout. So what I was saying is I now schedule 15-minute breaks in between lessons. And I'm still doing shorter lessons for younger students because it's less money for them to have to pay, which means that I do start my students at weird times. But that 15 minutes is great because it means that I can stand up and I can like put on fast music and I can move around so that I don't end up sitting all day. And I can stoke my fire, I can run to the bathroom, I can let the dog out if I need to do that. I can do all the things that I need to do, and maybe even I can finish lesson notes. And then once I've emailed them to a student, I let my music staff email them. But once I get everybody onto the website, which will mean that they'll go through my website, then they'll click on a little thing and it links them into my music staff and it lets them see their calendar and all their notes and their online resources and stuff then that I've made for them, which are like links to online theory games and different sorts of things like that. So then they're fine. So that's it, I think. And I hope that this helps. Please let me know if you have any questions. And I hope you're having a good day. And good luck with teaching your students.